Sridhar today with us, CEO of Johor Corporation. He's going to talk about bootstrapping and how Bootup India is going to help all of us. I'll give you a little bit brief about Bootup India. It's a program where we intend to celebrate bootstrapping and support selected startups for a year through various activities. The key benefits include structured group mentoring, media visibility, and many more. You can check it out, bootupindia.net, for more details. Without any further ado, I would like to basically discuss things with Sridhar. Sridhar, you have been the poster boy for bootstrapping ecosystem in India. Please give us a glimpse of you and your journey in the early days where you didn't even have 100 customers at that point in time. We'd like to hear your story and get inspired from what you have done with Johor.
So, the reason we bootstrapped is because we didn't really have a clear, concrete idea of what we were going to be doing, what markets, how we were going to make it a business, how we were going to make money. None of those were very clear. It was simply like setting out on a journey without exactly knowing what the destination is going to be. That actually fits a lot of people, a lot more people than you would think, because particularly when you're young, when you're in your 20s, 22, 23, 25, whatever, you're confused. You don't really have any real firm ideas what you want to be, right? That's how it was for us. I would think when you are starting out that way, bootstrapping is an excellent choice because it lets you figure out things along the way rather than kind of force to follow a certain pattern. I mean, and you have to remember, whenever you take money from someone, there's always the clock ticking for them. They have to show an ROI. They have to show their internal IRR, internal rate of return or whatever. And the clock starts ticking. But maybe, when you're 23, you don't want the clock to be ticking on you. So which is why bootstrapping is an excellent idea.
How was your story when you were starting up? You didn't have, suppose you started with a 0 customer on the day you started. How was the journey? How difficult it was for you to achieve the first 100 customers? That probably our fellow entrepreneurs would love to hear from you.
It's a really good question. Finding that first customer or the first 10 or first 100, that's the hardest part of any of this. In fact, finding one paying customer is really hard in anything you do. So you have to go after, it's kind of foolish to say, I'll go after Google right now, or I'll go after Microsoft. That's not how you begin. Because when you're nobody, really it's not like anyone is going to trust you with their business. That's just the reality. So it is always good to find those opportunities where maybe there's a neglected market segment, there is something that's not addressed by the big players, there's a sort of overlooked opportunity. That's what you have to be looking for. Or an angle. I mean, it might be a technology that is common, but maybe you're approaching a customer who hasn't had access to the technology or who simply haven't thought about all this. In our case, a good example is we had this network management technology, but we chose not to go after the big players in the market. That would have been really hard. Instead, we went after OEMs. Really, printer manufacturers were one of the early ones. And those printer companies did not have access to that kind of technology before. So they ended up becoming good OEM customers for us. Right. That's how our journey began. The first 5-10 customers were all in such spaces, printers, that kind of equipment, which they didn't have access to the software. We provided them that software at a good, affordable pricing.
So you identified the gap and you went after that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So coming back to how people believe around the general impression on bootstrapping, many people believe bootstrapping is just a state before the funding, right? In your case, bootstrapping was something that you adopted by conscious choice, or you thought that is the only way to go about it?
Yeah, it was. I would say initially bootstrapping was kind of the only choice for us because as I said, we are setting out on a journey where we don't know where we are going, what the destination is, all of that. But once we got going, kind of started liking it because there's so much freedom. You can do whatever you want. Once you start making a little bit of money, you can say, hey, I will choose to go in this. We were not a cloud player to begin with. 15, 17 years ago when we got started, we had nothing to do with the cloud. But today we are a leading player in the cloud. The company has evolved The name has evolved. The people have substantially remained the same. That we hold on to our employees. We hire people for the long haul. So our people adapt, learn. That has been an excellent journey. If we had taken investment, we would have had to worry about an exit or a liquidity for that investor. That would kind of change our culture. That's why we didn't do it.
Excellent. So that brings to a typical question. If the current situation, if you have to restart Zoho, do you think that it is feasible to do or scale to a level where you are today without taking any external fund?
Well, that's kind of a trick question. It won't be. We won't be. If I were to start right now, I wouldn't do the Zoho the way we are doing it right now. Too, you'll have to adapt to the current circumstance. Remember, Zoho itself was born about 8 years ago when the cloud was not as well formed as it is today. It's a lot more, mature and competitive ecosystem. So it's not meaningful to say you can just build Zoho again starting from scratch today. In exactly the same way, you would not want to build a Windows operating system today. That's not where the opportunity is. So you will have to look for elsewhere, opportunities elsewhere, neglected corners, and like what I said. So there is clearly opportunity at any time you can bootstrap. It's not, because I always say 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, there are going to be entrepreneurs. There are going to be businesses born. So there's always going to be opportunity, but you just have to look harder. You have to find where that is. And cloud is something that we found about 8 years ago.
Right. So that's very interesting. Basically, you need to see where it is possible, where the fitment is there, and accordingly go after that. Exactly. But that brings to a very natural question to me. Do you think that if you would have taken external funding, 8 years before, maybe the Salesforce would not have happened. Maybe the Zoho would be the Salesforce. Maybe you would have been a much bigger company than what you are today.
It's possible, but I totally concede that's possible. But you would also be a different company than we are today, which in so many ways that difference is what we really don't want to be. We like the way we are. We like our culture, and we are making money, so we would continue this way. I know it's really not any kind of a horse race here. Salesforce could exist, we could exist, we would do fine. And it's also, remember, all these wins and losses all determine the long haul, not in 5 years or even 10 years. It will be 20 years, 30 years. In that sense, you notice that Apple lost, and now they have won. They have comprehensively won against Microsoft now. They lost. So who won and who lost? Who can say that, So.
Right. No, I got your point there. So now, I think we have a fair idea about your journey, and we'd like to talk about a little bit on Boot Up India. You have been a jury member for Boot Up India, and we'd like to understand what motivated you to agree to this program and participate.
I really want to be part of this, encouraging these types of bootstrapped companies, just to bring the balance to the ecosystem. Today, if you all around us, we are bombarded with all this VC investment here and private equity financing there. It's all becoming too much about the financing of companies rather than about the companies, technologies, products themselves. That's the part. In other words, there's a little too much of the financialization. That's the right word here, happening around the startup ecosystem. Hopefully, this program can bring a balance to it. So you encourage true entrepreneurship, people who are bootstrapping. That's why I want to be part of it.
Right. So what is the key benefits that you think the startups will get out of this program?
It's really that first that they have to realize they're not alone. Because one of the things any entrepreneur faces is, we are all alone. Other people have gone through these challenges. Other people are going through these challenges. That's really what the primary benefit to me. The thought that you're not alone. That's what I want to emphasize.
Yeah, basically celebrating the bootstrapping as a pathway to success, right? Is all that about, and basically staying together. That ecosystem will bring a lot of value, right?
Right.
But so how do you personally think that you will get benefited out of this program?
There is a psychic benefit of seeing people succeed. You see someone and you mentor and you coach and they succeed. That's actually exactly the same thing that we do in Zoho University program. It's really the kind of psychic benefit you get from these young people blossoming into really professionals, engineers who get some serious things done. That's a psychic benefit. I want to see these fledgling small companies grow up, and it's also good for India. India needs a lot more employers, a lot more investment, a lot more jobs, and this is a crucial part of that, in my opinion.
Excellent. So we talked about a little bit of a bootstrapping ecosystem from now. So it has been, meaning the funding of in the ecosystem has been celebrated very widely by media, by all different kind of channels.
Yes.
So how do you think bootstrapping startup will figure into this ecosystem and balance it out? What is your direction, that what we should do as an ecosystem to basically balance that out?
If you hear the messages all around you, it's of the idea that maybe this is not even a good path, maybe this is a path for losers, maybe people who are misfit. But realize that even entrepreneurship really is about thinking out of the box. To some extent, entrepreneurs ought to be crazy, they ought to be misfits, they ought to stand out, all of that. So in this sense, bootstrapping itself is a way of standing out from the rest of the pack. So, and you see that also the rest of the ecosystem, you look at the financiers in this picture, too many of them, there's too many financiers now, there's too much money chasing around. I mean, thanks to the liquidity policies of the Federal Reserve and the banks around the world, that there's too much money in the system and chasing too few real opportunities. And in that sense, I mean, too many people are falling victim to, hey, I have to raise as much money as we can. That's a pissing contest. But the real measure is your revenues, your profitability, your employment. All of this is what I consider as real measures. So I want to emphasize that. I want to bring that balance to the ecosystem.
Excellent. So this particular year, we're focusing on ISME, which is Indian SME. If you have to give, you have to give a top 5 priority this entrepreneurs should focus on, what do you think that would be?
The first and foremost, I would emphasize that any business should aim to be world class. Benchmark yourselves against, you may only address the Indian market, but still it behoves to learn what are the best practices, best approaches globally in that particular segment, and learn from it, because India really needs to, we have to advance our capabilities, both in manufacturing, in services, any of this. And that can only happen by benchmarking ourselves. It would even help to compete globally, but in a very small company, maybe that's not an immediate easy choice. But at the very least, learn from the best. Go to Singapore, Switzerland, seek inspiration from how a similarly situated company would do it in Switzerland, in Singapore, and apply those concepts here, because that's what we really need in India right now. That's, I would say, my first and foremost would be learn from the best, apply those principles here, right here in India.
Right. So that's the meaning. That if they focus on that, they probably could navigate what best they can do for the Indian customers.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So anything. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you start with that focus, then immediately you also, as a byproduct, you become globally competitive. In future, you have to step out of India to seek markets. The fact that you are already globally competitive, you benchmark yourselves against the best, it allows you to now scale up globally. That's a side benefit of this. So for the Indian SME sector, this is something that I would highly recommend thinking about for any founder.
Right. But the challenge of Indian SMEs are very different, and sometimes it's the sales cycle in Indian SME is a very difficult path comparing to what you sell it in a global market.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
That is true. There is definitely challenges to doing business in India. First, you do have lower margins because it is as a overall everything is compressed here, right? Our GDP is a compressed version of GDP elsewhere. You have not as much pricing leverage. All of these are true for any business operating in India. But to compensate on the other side, your costs can be lower too. So the job of a smart businessman or a businesswoman is to find a way to match this gap. So you have lower costs, but you have lower margins. How do you match the two? That is one of the challenges.
Excellent.
So,
So, I think thank you very much, Sridhar. Do you want to close with any closing statement that you wanted to basically pass on to the entrepreneurs that listening to this video?
yeah, I would say, this is a great time. I see tremendous growth in India in the next 10, 20 years. We are poised for a lot of growth ahead, simply from a lot of factors: demographics, spread of education, rising college population, college going population, a lot of these, and an aspirational middle class coming up, which we saw in these elections recently. All of these point to, and a government now that gets it. Development is a key goal for our new government, and all of these point to a decade or more of really growth ahead in India. So this is a really good time to be Indian, good time to be in Indian in business today. That's
Yes,
my message.
I agree. I think it's a good time to become an entrepreneur, and if you're in college, probably there's the right time to start. And we as a Boot Up India, this is the 15th of September is the last day, 5 days from now. Please check out bootupindia.net and apply as quick as possible. Thank you, Sridhar, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.